One of the greatest drivers in Formula One history just admitted it, this season has been a nightmare. Lewis Hamilton, broken front wing, a 5-second penalty, and another DNF in Brazil. A season that began with promise has turned into one of the most frustrating campaigns of his career. And now, Ferrari is falling behind in the constructors' battle with their star signing questioning everything. The crowd at Interlagos was still settling into their seats when happened Lewis Hamilton, a name synonymous with resilience and excellence, found himself entangled in yet another early race nightmare. Just a few corners into the Brazilian Grand Prix, the Ferrari star clipped Franco Colapinto in a desperate attempt to regain ground. The damage was instant: a shattered front wing, compromised floor, and with it, any hope of redemption in a season that continues to punish his faith in red. There's something profoundly unsettling when a 7-time world champion speaks with defeat in his voice. And after this latest Grand Prix, that's exactly what happened. For the first time, Hamilton's frustration wasn't disguised in diplomatic answers or carefully chosen words. It came out raw. He admitted what many feared but few expected to hear from him: mentally, I'm not okay. A brutally honest confession that strips away the media gloss and exposes the emotional toll of trying to build something meaningful in a structure that keeps failing him. This wasn't just another DNF. This was symbolic. A race that began with a broken setup and ended with broken spirit. Ferrari's decision to start Hamilton with a high-risk aerodynamic package backfired instantly, forcing him into early contact, a nose change, and eventually retirement. But even before the contact with Colapinto is SF. 25 lacked balance and grip, particularly through the mid-speed sections where the Brazilian circuit demands precision. What we witnessed was a misfortune. It was a car not built for his strengths, and strategy not tailored to a champion's instincts. As Hamilton sat in the garage, helmet off, silence surrounding him, Ferrari's problems became personal. There was no podium to chase, no points to recover, and no optimism to cling to. What's worse is that Ferrari's rivals were thriving. Red Bull looked dominant once again. Mercedes executed their race with surgical precision. And as the checkered flag fell, Ferrari's deficit in the Constructors' Championship widened dangerously. They now trail Mercedes by over 25 points, a margin that stings even more when your best weapon is out of the fight. Hamilton didn't come to Maranello to fight for 6th-place finishes and rebuild years. He came to create legacy, to lift Ferrari back to the top, and take the fight to Red Bull and Mercedes on his own terms. But what happens when the tools don't match the talent? What happens when the vision that was sold in pre-season meetings fades under the weight of development failures, pit wall hesitations, and car that bites back every Sunday? That is the question haunting every Ferrari supporter now, and one Hamilton himself seems to be asking. And yet, as painful as this moment is, it may just be the start of a deeper revelation, not only about Ferrari's internal disarray, but about Hamilton's true strength: to endure, to rebuild, and to redefine what comeback really means. Because even in crisis, the legacy of a champion isn't erased. It's rewritten. This was no ordinary weekend. This was a message, and it might be the final turning point of his Ferrari journey. Lewis Hamilton's Sunday in São Paulo didn't collapse in one moment. It was a chain reaction. And it started the second the lights went out. Positioned deep in the midfield after a frustrating qualifying session, Hamilton's margin for error was razor thin. As the pack surged into Turn 1, chaos brewed all around. Cold tires, poor visibility, and no room to breathe. Within just a few corners, he found himself boxed in by Colapinto's Alpine on one side and the Aston Martin of Stroll on the other. Trying to assert position on the outside line, Hamilton made contact with Colapinto not out of desperation, but necessity. The result? His front wing folded underneath him, sending carbon fiber across the track and triggering the first unraveling of his race. The damage was more than cosmetic. Hamilton's front wing wasn't just broken, it tore the aerodynamic balance of the SF25 apart. The floor, which Ferrari had already admitted was running an experimental setup, took a hit as well. This is critical. On a circuit like Interlagos, where fast changes of direction and elevation shifts define performance, any imbalance in the floor compromises rear grip and rotation. From that point forward, Hamilton was fighting a car that simply didn't respond. He radioed in immediately: no front, no rear. I can't keep it on track. Ferrari brought him in for a wing change, but it was clear the race was already slipping away. Then came the next blow: the FIA's ruling. After reviewing the incident, the stewards declared Hamilton predominantly to blame for the clash with Colapinto. a 5-second time penalty was issued, further crushing any chance of a comeback. It wasn't just the penalty that stung, it was the consistency or lack thereof. Throughout the weekend, similar first-lap contacts went unpunished. But here, in arguably the most high-pressure moment of Ferrari's season, their top driver was handed a penalty that only deepened the team's spiral. Hamilton didn't hide his feelings. His radio message was cold and direct. "You've got to be kidding me." It wasn't anger. It was disappointment, the kind that grows when you feel let down by every piece of the system around you. And this isn't a one-off. The bigger picture shows a pattern. Hamilton's season has been riddled with mechanical unpredictability, pit wall indecision, and car setups that ignore his driving DNA. In a year where Ferrari promised a driver-first design philosophy, the reality has been anything but. From porpoising inconsistencies to mid-race strategy reversals, Hamilton has been left to salvage results with tools that simply aren't elite. Brazil was not an outlier. It was a reflection of a team that sold hope but hasn't delivered solutions. All this unfolded in less than an hour. But for Lewis Hamilton, the fallout may stretch far beyond one race. In that moment, when the team asked if he could continue, his silence said more than any radio message could. This wasn't just a DNF. This was an emotional exhale from a champion who's carried the weight of expectation and now must confront the reality that Ferrari, as it stands, isn't ready for his level. The SF25 is not a slow car, it is a misaligned one. Ferrari's 2025 Challenger was designed around a concept aimed at increasing peak downforce while minimizing drag penalties. On paper, it should have delivered. But across the season, and especially in Brazil, that concept failed under pressure. The high rake philosophy, combined with their aggressive rear-end aero packaging, has created an unstable platform. It bites under load. It resists smooth transitions. And for a driver like Hamilton, who relies on subtle inputs and clean exits, the margin for control disappears the moment the rear axle loses trust. At Interlagos, this became painfully clear. Ferrari's decision to run a stiffer rear suspension setting intended to protect tire life on longer stints backfired massively in the opening laps. As Hamilton attempted to climb through the field, he encountered rapid rear sliding mid-corner, particularly in the twisty second sector. Even before the contact with Colapinto, the telemetry showed he was lifting earlier than he had in FP3. That means he was already compensating already losing lap time. And that's the paradox of Ferrari's setup. To protect one problem, they create two more. This isn't just about balance. It's about communication. The SF25 doesn't talk to the driver the way Hamilton's past title-winning cars did. With Mercedes, Lewis had a machine that translated every steering input into a calculated response, predictable and pliable. Here, the Ferrari speaks a different language. The rear snaps with little warning. The ride height oscillations through compression zones like turn 4 brake rhythm. And when the driver loses rhythm, strategy becomes reactive. You stop racing. You start surviving. Brazil exposed another flaw in Ferraris, thinking the overdependence on simulation over driver feedback. Throughout the weekend, Hamilton pushed for changes in diff settings and front wing angle, asking to soften the response mid-corner. His requests were partially applied, but the final run plan still favored raw speed over drivability. In the words of one trackside engineer, "We committed to the model." That phrase should worry fans, because no simulator can replicate the instincts of a 7-time world champion. Hamilton knows how to feel grip better than most engineers can calculate it. And when that voice is overruled, you don't just lose tenths, you lose direction. Strategically, the team's responses to adversity were slow. After the wing damage, Hamilton's stop was clean, but Ferrari hesitated to pivot the strategy to match the changing race conditions. Instead of switching to an undercut or opening a window for softs, they defaulted to a recovery plan that didn't exist. By the time the penalty was applied and Hamilton's tire life degraded, his race was effectively over. Not because of a lack of effort, but because Ferrari refused to adapt. Ultimately, what Brazil confirmed is this: Hamilton's natural brilliance is being dulled by a car that doesn't allow expression. Engineering in Formula One is supposed to elevate the driver's talent. But in Ferrari's 2025 package, it handcuffs it. And if this remains unaddressed, the consequences won't just be in points lost, they'll be in confidence shattered. In Formula One, talent can only go so far. Without tactical execution, even the greatest drivers become passengers. That's exactly what happened to Lewis Hamilton in Brazil. From the very first lap, Ferrari's race strategy collapsed under pressure, not due to bad luck, but due to a series of slow, reactive decisions that showed a team still struggling to function with the clarity and urgency required at this level. Once Hamilton sustained damage in the early contact with Colapinto, Ferrari was handed a difficult situation. But what followed made it worse. They delayed the pit stop by a full lap after the initial radio call. During that lap, Hamilton lost over 3 seconds due to front-end instability and drag. That delay put him behind critical midfield traffic, locking him out of any chance of an aggressive recovery strategy. Worse still, the pit crew was ready, the tires were prepped, but the decision from the wall came late. Indecision cost them position, and position cost them the race. Then came the penalty. 5 seconds for causing the collision. Now, penalties happen in racing, but how a team adapts is where the real strategy begins. Red Bull or Mercedes would have adjusted immediately, opening a window for clean air, altering stint lengths, even changing compound choice to mitigate the time loss. Ferrari did none of that. Instead, they kept Hamilton on the default plan, despite traffic data showing he was losing over 0.6 per lap behind slower cars. When the chance to recover vanished, they didn't pivot. They persisted. That's not strategy. That's stubbornness. Communication didn't help either. Throughout the race, Hamilton's tone on the radio shifted from urgency to silence. At one point, he even asked the team, "What's the plan?" A question that should never be asked by a driver mid-race. It signals a lack of clarity, a breakdown of communication in the most fundamental area of racing, trust between driver and team. Ferrari has promised transparency and smarter tools in 2025, but in Brazil, they operated on outdated instincts while their competitors adapted in real time.